Hey, what's going on? Zach D Productions here, and I am here for a Q&A video, and this is, of course, my 8th year anniversary Q&A video. So, thank you guys so much for 8 years on this platform, and thank you all for the questions that you have left for me to answer. So, let's go ahead and get started with this Q&A. I think the first question I'll get into comes from Andrew Bebe, who is, of course, a good friend of mine. He's been featured on the channel a few times in my film work, and he'll probably continue to be in my series and film work. You could pretty much consider him a part of the team. So Andrew asked me, when you reach 2,000 subscribers, will there be a YouTube live party, a celebration? Yeah, I'll probably do something whenever I do reach 2,000 subs. I mean, I don't know what, but probably something, but yeah, we'll see what happens. Thanks for the question, Andrew. So these next questions come from Christian Perez. So Christian asks me, are you going to any shows next year in 2023, and are you going to see Metallica again on their stadium tour? Yeah, I would like to go to some shows in 2023. I'm just not sure who yet. I guess it all depends on who's coming to town. But yeah, I would like to go to at least a few shows in 2023. Seeing Metallica again, I mean, that would be cool if given the chance, but I mean, the first time I saw Metallica in concert, the tickets were pretty pricey, so I don't know if I will see them again, to be honest. But of course, again, if given the chance, I definitely would like to. Okay, so these next questions come from Kyle Keith. So Kyle asked me, what are some of your favorite modern bands, modern meaning 2000 and later? Now, 2000s is probably the latest that I'll go as far as the bands that I'm into, but yeah, some of my favorite 2000s bands would have to, of course, be Trivium, Demon Hunter, Breaking Benjamin, Red, Killswitch Engage, just to name a few. And what are some of your favorite classic bands? Classic meaning 1999 and before. Probably Iron Maiden, definitely one of my favorites. Metallica, Black Sabbath, Van Halen, Rush, Yes, King Crimson, just to name a few bands. What are some of your favorite movies pre-2000? Well, I guess you mean classic movies. The Indiana Jones films, for sure. The first three, those are great. The Batman films with Michael Keaton, Batman and Batman Returns, great films. Probably some of the best Batman films. The James Bond films, especially films like Goldfinger, which is probably my favorite of the Sean Connery era. And then you, of course, have GoldenEye, which is probably my favorite of the Pierce Brosnan era, which I know a lot of people would say the same thing. You have the Back to the Future trilogy as well, which is, of course, a classic trilogy, but I will be honest, if I never see these films again, I probably would be okay, because I've seen these films a little too many times, so yeah, they're kind of overplayed. I mean, they're good films, but they are kind of overplayed, and I really don't need to see them again. But I have grown up with these films, and they're classics, so there is that. All right, so what are some of your favorite modern movies post-2000 and the next 15 years? A lot of my favorite modern films are superhero films. Of course, like the Dark Knight trilogy, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, and the Spider-Man trilogy, the Sam Raimi trilogy, that is. Great films. And you also have the X-Men. What else? And as far as, stuff that came in the last decade or so, in trilogies from then, probably John Wick. So there you go. Those are some of my favorite modern films. What songs do you think will be played on classic rock radio? I'm not sure what you mean by that. What do you mean, what songs? That's kind of like I don't know, that's a tricky one. I don't know, like what songs that are, that are modern that'll eventually be classics. I don't know. That's kind of a tough one. I really don't know. I mean, I would maybe say, I don't know. I mean, maybe Breaking Benjamin and 3 Days Grace music. I don't know. That's a tricky one. I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that. What are some of your favorite 80s albums of all time? Definitely Ride the Lightning by Metallica, which is arguably maybe my favorite album of all time. I mean, that's usually one of the albums that I point to as my favorite of all time, or one of my favorites anyways. Power Slave by Iron Maiden. Same with Seventh Son of a Seventh Son as well. What else? Probably some of the Dio Black Sabbath albums as well. Probably the Rush albums that came out around this time as well, like Moving Pictures and Permanent Waves and Signals as well. I think those are actually some of their best as well. Even some of Yes's material, like 90125 and Drama as well. I think those are really good as well. But yeah, those are some of my favorite 80s albums. Oh, and some Van Halen as well. I mean, you can't forget Van Halen. I mean, like Fair Warning, which I think is probably their best. But yeah, those are some of my favorite 80s albums. So thank you so much for the questions, Kyle Keith. Okay, so Jeremy Spade asked me, what is your favorite band? I really don't have a favorite band, or I can really name one band that I would consider my favorite, but I do have favorites. Some of my favorite bands would definitely be Rush, Van Halen, Metallica, Iron Maiden, Dream Theater, Demon Hunter, Trivium, just to name a few favorites. But yeah, those are probably some of my favorite bands. What is your age and birthday? My age now is 26, and my birthday is in May. So there you go. Thanks so much for the questions, Jeremy Spade. So these next questions come from Donnie Rahames. Aerosmith or Def Leppard? Def Leppard for sure. Aerosmith is fine, but I definitely prefer Def Leppard. What is Megadeth's most underrated album in your opinion? Probably So Far So Good So What or Cryptic Writings. I'd say that those are some of their most underrated. What is Judas Priest's most underrated album in your opinion? Kind of a tough question, actually. Maybe Ram It Down. I think that album is pretty solid. That album doesn't really get a whole lot of love. I mean, especially in comparison to like Painkiller and, you know, a lot of their other albums from around that time. But yeah, I'd maybe say Ram It Down. Do you think Tool should release a new album soon? I mean, if you ask me, yes, I do think they should. Their last album came out a few years ago at this point, and I mean, you know how Tool is and how their album cycles work. I mean, they do like to take their good old time when releasing new albums, so who knows. Now, I did hear something that Tool's next release will actually be an EP, so I mean, if that ends up happening, that would be pretty cool. But either way, I think we're definitely getting close to that point where we are due for something new from Tool. I mean, I think we should at least get something from them within the next couple of years, but that's just my take on it. Do you plan on doing anything with Ardening again, like a reboot? The possibility is there, but you guys know that I did end Ardening with Ardening 6 Cult Awakening, and I mean, at the time, I really didn't have any plans to reboot it or anything, but I think maybe sometime I will. I mean, the you know, one thing is confirmed though, Ardening is part of the ZDCU. If you haven't seen Vengeance Zerone, you probably wouldn't have known that, spoiler alert. So yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with Ardening in the future, but I'm just going to say anything is possible. What is your worst series? Okay, my worst series, probably Teleporter Alex 2, maybe the first one as well. Those are some of my weakest series, I think. Same with Undercover. Now, Undercover was more about the reception than my actual opinion on it. Now, a lot of you guys do know when I do come out with a new film, it does usually receive pretty good reception. People usually are liking it. But Undercover is one of those films that I've released that actually received mixed reception. And that's why I never made a sequel to it. So there is that. And, you know, I'm kind of surprised by that, actually, you know, because I thought that I did a pretty good job on it, you know, considering the effects and, you know, everything like that, but it's whatever, so yeah, Undercover probably would be one of my weakest series. I don't know if it's because of the story or what, but I don't know. But thank you for your questions, Donnie. So this next question comes from Dalvin. It's my 8th year anniversary on my channel as well. Oh, hey, congrats. Who is your all-time favorite movie director, producer? Probably Sam Raimi, maybe because of the original Spider-Man trilogy. Christopher Nolan, I really do like a lot of his work. Of course, the Dark Knight trilogy, and I think Tenet's a pretty good film as well. I think he's coming out with a new one in 2023, actually. I forget what it's called, but yeah, I think he's coming out with one in 2023 as well. And yeah, of course, I'll check it out. So yeah, those are some that I would name. So thank you for your question, Dalvin. So this next question comes from Pink Hyde. What is the best song on Megadeth's new album, The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead? So I would probably say We'll Be Back, which is also probably my favorite of the singles as well. I do like the title track too. The title track's probably another one of the best songs on the album. But yeah, as far as Megadeth's new album is concerned, I do think it's a good album. Probably the best thing that they've done since, I don't know, Countdown to Extinction. It's a good album, but I will admit I haven't been returning to it that much. But still, pretty solid album for what it is. Thanks for the question, Pink Hyde. Okay, so these next questions come from RJCJ Rock. Thoughts on the emo genre? Bands such as Sunny Day Real Estate, Texas is the Reason, and Rites of Spring. Not really familiar with these bands. When I think of emo bands, I usually think of like bands that you would see at like Warped Tour and stuff, like, I don't know, Black Veil Brides and stuff like that. Jewel cases or digipacks? I do prefer jewel cases, and I know that I'm probably one of the few millennials that probably do prefer jewel cases. I think the reason being is because I think it just takes better care of the CD and it doesn't get as worn out as easily, like the case. Now, digipacks I usually don't have an issue with as well, but I mean, I'll pretty much buy my CDs in either or, but if you had to make me choose, probably jewel cases. Best bands you've seen live, definitely Metallica and Demon Hunter. These are probably the two best shows I've ever been to. I haven't really been to that many shows, so yeah. But I would probably name those two. Thank you for your questions, RJCJ. All right, so this next question comes from Dead Yellow. What is the biggest surprise in a band/movie that you didn't think you'd like before but ended up really enjoying? Probably Dream Theater. I remember checking them out for the first time in like 2016. And I will say that I actually didn't like them at all when I first checked them out. But a couple years have passed by. 2018, I did check them out again, and I ended up really liking them. I gave them a proper chance, you could say, and I ended up really liking their music, and they're probably one of my favorite bands now. But that would be a surprise in a band. So yeah, for a movie, that is a good question. Maybe John Wick, because I really didn't get into the John Wick franchise till about earlier this year. Same with The Matrix as well. Really didn't get into The Matrix till later. I didn't think that I'd get into those films either, but yeah, I hope that answers your question, Dead Yellow. Thank you for the question. Okay, so these next questions come from Letterbomb Media. Congrats on 8 years. Thank you so much. What channels inspired you to do YouTube? Not really any channels. It's just something that I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to be a YouTuber, like even before I started this channel, like when I was a lot younger. And it's crazy that this is what I'm doing now. So yeah, it just kind of happened, you could say. How big is your movie collection? It's growing pretty decently, actually. I've been really doing a lot more movie collecting this year than I ever had before. Now, I've always been a movie fan, but I've started to have a more open mind to different films, and I've started to explore a lot more, you could say, and it just continues to grow. But yeah, it's decently growing. I'll just say that. How do you stay motivated to make videos very often? Again, it just kind of happened. I just do it for the fun of it. It's kind of like a hobby. So I do it for you guys, and I also do it for myself as well. It's a nice pastime, you could say. Especially when it comes to just regular uploads, not including my series work or anything. I usually put a lot more effort into those than in my regular content, if you haven't noticed that already. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. I just do it because I like to. Okay, so these next questions come from MJ Nation, who is, of course, another good friend of mine. Congrats on 8 years. Thank you so much. What are some of the worst movies you've ever seen? Well, I believe I've made a video about this already, about the worst films I've ever seen, and I know I've included Baywatch on that list, and Baywatch is definitely one of the worst films I've ever seen. I just feel like this movie tries way too hard. I mean, you guys know what I mean by that. When I say it, I feel like it tries too hard. It's incredibly dirty, and definitely not a fan of it. This movie has Dwayne Johnson and Zac Efron starring in it. Now, nothing against these guys as actors or anything. I'm just not a fan of the movie. That's all. But yeah, Baywatch is definitely one of the first films that come to mind when I think of the worst movies I've ever seen. That's one of them anyways. What are some bands that you really want to see live? Dream Theater for sure. I mean, if they ever come to my area, I probably would get tickets. I'd like to see Rush as well if they were still a band and if Neil Peart was still with us, of course. I would like to see other bands in the Big Four as well besides Metallica, because Metallica is the only one that I've seen. I mean, I would like to see Megadeth and Anthrax. Anthrax has actually been to my area recently, but I unfortunately never got to go see them. Do you have any metalhead friends at your job? Not really. I mean, one of my managers does like the whole Warped Tour scene. I mean, I don't know if you want to call that metal, but I know that Pierce the Veil is his favorite band. And I know that he's into other stuff that I kind of like as well, like We Came as Romans, but besides that, not really. What are some bands that you want to check out, get into? I'm not really looking to get into any other bands at the moment. I'm kind of taking a break from checking out some bands. I did check out a few bands recently that I got into, but eventually I would like to check out more of Prong. I did really like what I heard from them. Who do you think makes the best fries? That is a very good question, because I do like my fries. Maybe Five Guys. Maybe, I don't know. It's hard to say, because I pretty much like fries from everywhere that isn't McDonald's. I think Wendy's fries are pretty good. Not the best, but pretty good. Sheetz fries are pretty good. I mean, I know that a lot of you guys are unfamiliar with Sheetz. It's more of an East Coast thing, but I believe they're going to move around in other states and such. So, yeah. But I mean, if you ever get a chance to get some Sheetz, definitely do so. But yeah, I maybe would say Five Guys has the best fries. I am a vegetarian, so fries are really one of the few things I will get there. Favorite fruit? Probably bananas. Have you seen the Fast and Furious movies? No, but I would like to. I have thought about checking those out. I know that there's Hobbs and Shaw, which I've heard pretty good things about. I probably would like to check out that sometime. So yeah, I probably would like to look into the Fast and Furious films at some point. Which is worse, Theory of a Dead Man or Crazy Town? Both are pretty bad, but I don't know. Maybe Theory of a Dead Man? I'm not sure. I'm pretty unfamiliar with Crazy Town, but from what I heard from them, I really didn't like. Any bands that have fallen off for you or don't really listen to much anymore? There are definitely some bands. Well, Queensryche for one. I mean, and that's mainly due to Todd Latour's attitude on social media and stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. This is one of those cases where I really do have a hard time separating the art from the artist. I mean, Todd Latour just seems like a really big SJW. He really needs to change his attitude. But other bands that have just fallen off for me just grew to just boredom, like Gentle Giant. I will admit I haven't really been returning to these guys. There's only really one song that I do like from these guys. There's only one song that I do find myself returning to from these guys, and I mean, their music is definitely not bad. I would definitely not consider it bad, but I just kind of grown to be kind of bored with their music. And I think I got into them, when I was really high on prog rock, and this was like really the only thing that I would be willing to listen to at the time. But yeah, so Gentle Giant, their music's not bad, but they've kind of fallen off for me. I'm not gonna lie. Same with Soen as well. Unfortunately, my last few listens with this band have been kind of a snooze fest. I've been kind of bored with their music recently too. I don't know. It's weird like that. Like there's music that just appeals to you, at first, and then like a year or so later, you feel differently about it. It's weird how taste and how things like that work. So yeah, but those are some bands that have kind of fallen off for me. So MJ's last question is, what are some superhero movies that you think are kind of underrated? Maybe The Wolverine from 2013. I mean, you could really make a debate on whether or not that movie is underrated. The Dark Knight Rises, I think, is kind of underrated. I know that a lot of people say that that's the worst Batman film, or the worst of the live-action ones. I mean, it might be, but even in saying that, it's still a really good film, and I do enjoy it quite a bit. What else you got? Oh, Batman Returns, probably. Didn't get as much attention as the first. I mean, the first one is better, probably, but the second one is almost as good, I'd say. And I would also say Captain America, the First Avenger. This film doesn't get as much attention as the other two Captain America films in the trilogy. Now, the other two are better. That is something that I will say. But the first one is still pretty good, I'd say. I think I've seen this one at the theater, actually. And I would maybe say The Eternals as well. Now, Eternals is often considered one of the worst films in the MCU. But when I saw it, I actually enjoyed it. I actually thought it was a very solid film. I mean, I wouldn't put it up there as one of the best MCU films or anything, but it's pretty good and kind of overhated as well. I know that some people said that film would work better as a show than an entire movie, but either way, I think it's pretty solid for what it's worth. So yeah, those are some superhero films that I think are kind of underrated. So these next questions come from Junebug Films. Top 5 favorite movies of all time. Probably The Matrix, the first one. That would definitely be one of my favorites. I love the first Matrix film. I probably got to have one of the Batman films in there as well. Probably the first Michael Keaton one. What else? Spider-Man 2 from Sam Raimi for sure. Probably the best Spider-Man film of all time, actually. What else? As far as more recent ones, maybe John Wick 3. Probably the best of the John Wick trilogy as well. And for number 5, that's tough. It's really hard to choose favorite movies. I'm looking at my shelf right now. I don't know. That's tough. It's hard to choose a number 5. I'd maybe go with I don't know, maybe Avengers Endgame. I don't know. I thought of an Avengers film, but yeah. That's a great one. Maybe Avengers Endgame or Infinity War. Those two honestly do fight for being my favorite of the Avengers films. It's hard to choose favorite movies because, well, there's so many good ones. But I hope that answered your question. How do you think you bring back the magic of the movies? I think originality, just pure storytelling without any agendas attached to it. I think that's maybe one of the things. I mean, I guess you would have to be more specific about that question because that's kind of a tricky one. Why do you think that Hollywood only appeals to the lowest common denominator when it comes to making movies? That I'm a little unsure about. What inspires you as a storyteller? Just, watching movies for years, playing video games for as long as I did. A lot of the stories involved in that. Some inspiration that I have taken, and, a lot of that for sure, I just pay close attention to little details that I see in stories and the direction that a lot of films head in and things like that. I don't know, these are some tricky questions. What are some of your heroes in the industry of movie making? I really don't have any. I really don't. There's not really anyone that I really look up to. Now, there are definitely some actors that I think would be very cool to meet, if you want to call them heroes, like, of course, Keanu Reeves, Jason Statham. Yeah, I mean, those are a couple. I mean, I hope that answered your question, Junebug Films. Thank you for your questions. Okay, so these last 5 questions come from Scamp the Wolf. Are you considering adding some animated films to your collection, for example, Pixar or Disney animation? I don't know. I mean, the possibility's there, but I don't know. I really don't have any desire to pick up a lot of Disney animation stuff or Pixar. I mean, I do like a lot of the Pixar stuff. Like, I do like the Toy Story films, which I've grown up with. Those are, of course, a part of my childhood. The first one probably is the best. Third one probably being my second favorite. Then the second one being my third favorite. And the fourth one, I think, is honestly the weakest one. But yeah, that's my opinion on those. If you're wondering, Finding Nemo, and the sequel to that, Finding Dory, wasn't as good as Finding Nemo, but not bad. The Incredibles. The Incredibles is definitely among one of my favorite Pixar films, maybe even my favorite, actually. Both the first and the second one I thought were pretty good. The first one's better, but the second one's pretty good as well. So there are Pixar and Disney animated stuff that I do like, but I just don't really like a lot. A lot of it does have to do with the nostalgia that I have for it. Do you think there is a band from the 2010s or 2020s that you'd enjoy if they sounded familiar to the music you enjoy, of course, other than Soen? Well, I just got done saying that Soen kind of fell off for me. So, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely possible. I mean, I get that there are bands today that do take a lot of inspiration from bands of the 80s and so on, but I don't know. It's really hard to find these kind of bands because a lot of modern metal today does focus and are definitely more reliant on the harsh vocals, are more on the extreme side of things, the super underground stuff, which is not really my thing. And I know I get kind of shunned from the metal community because of that, but hey, whatever, right? If it's not my thing, it's not my thing. I don't know what you want me to do about it. But yeah, I mean, I think there are definitely some good bands out there of, today's bands, if they took a little bit more inspiration from the classics. That's my take on it anyways. What is your favorite local news station? And by that, I mean favorite news station that broadcasts in your area, not nationally. I don't really watch the news, to be honest. What is your favorite movie theater chain? What do you mean by that? Do you mean the brand, like Cinemark? Because Cinemark is what I do attend to when I go to the movie theater. Maybe that is what you meant, but I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm a little confused by that. If that isn't what you meant, then I do apologize for the confusion. What is your favorite theme park? I'm not really a big theme park guy, to be honest. I mean, I know that you are, and that's fine, but yeah, it's been years since I've been to a theme park or an amusement park. I'm not really into them. I used to be when I was younger. I used to love them, but nowadays, not so much. But anyways, I hope that answered your questions. Thanks for the questions, Scamp the Wolf. So thank you all for asking questions, and thank you guys so much for 8 years on YouTube. So yeah, I hope that you are satisfied with the answers that I gave you. So on that note, thanks for watching and have a good one.